Number 10, Zado. In 2021 and 2022, we got the 28th and 29th seasons of Power Rangers. Power Rangers Dino Fury. The Red Ranger and leader of the Dino Fury Rangers, Zado, is courageous and compassionate, strengthened by the support of his teammates and his new experiences on Earth. Zado has truly grown into his role as a leader, but he doesn't really need to grow into anything because Zado here is actually not a human. He's a Rafkonian from the planet Rafkon, and he led the ancient Dino Fury Rangers 65 million years ago. So he's got quite a bit of experience under his belt. In 2023, we get the Cosmic Fury Rangers team, which is one of the rare times where the cast of a Rangers show from the previous 2 seasons go on to remain the Rangers for the next evolution of the Rangers franchise, and Zado will return as the Cosmic Fury Zenith Ranger, dressed in all white like his Dino Fury Ghost Ranger form, which happened when he was taken out and revived by the Morphin Masters. Number 9, Aeon. But Zado wasn't the only new Ranger from Dino Fury. Going over all the other Rangers seems like cheating for this list, but there is one Ranger who joined the team later that I thought was pretty cool. The Dino Fury Gold Ranger, Aeon. Aeon was also a Rafkonian just like Zado, and they even knew each other all those millions of years ago. Upon being cornered while fighting against Tidemare, Zado and the others witness the arrival of the mysterious Gold Ranger, who comes to assist them, and then later on, he reveals himself, explaining to Zado that he managed to escape the destruction of Ultrazord along with Zado during the Great Sporix Wars before being stranded and put to sleep in the sea for 65 million years. Aeon was reawakened by the Green Morphin Master, and just like Zado, Aeon's Rafkonian physiology gives him access to telepathic powers like retrocognition, memory reading, and memory transferal, plus somehow super eyesight. He is set to be the Cosmic Fury Gold Ranger when that season releases in September of 2023. In at number 8, Steele Silva. Before we had Dino Fury, we had Beast Morphers in 2019 and 2020, and for me, one member of this Ranger team stands out among the rest of the normal Humies. The Grid Battle Force Silver Ranger, Steele Silva. Steele is actually a robot, or should I say, he was a robot. He was created by the Gold Ranger of the team, Nate Silva. The robot absorbed human DNA from Nate and DNA from a scarab beetle, and this transformed it into the Silver Ranger, and technically Nate's brother. The bot had not been given a name until he addressed himself as, quote, Mr. Fantastic Super Handsome Strong as Steel, but Nate told him just stick with Steel, and so Steele Silva was born. Eventually, Steel sacrificed himself to drain Evox of most of his power by taking a devastating double energy attack to his stomach, which ultimately destroyed him. But it wasn't the end, as Master Green of the Morphin Masters saw his heroic sacrifice and resurrected Steel as a human so he could continue on as the Silver Ranger. Number 7, Matthew Cook. Nearly every other Ranger in the history of the franchise has had to deal with the burden of balancing their personal lives with their superhero activities. But this doesn't seem to be a problem for the newest Green Ranger, Matthew Cook. Matthew was another classmate of the original Mighty Morphin Rangers, and when he realized who they were, he confronted them on it, eventually becoming the new Green Ranger in place of Tommy Oliver, who became the White Ranger. When Lord Zed trapped the citizens of Angel Grove with an energy bubble, like you do, the Green Ranger revealed himself as Matthew to the rest of the people in order to improve morale, but with the added benefit of now being a well-known hero in the community. Unfortunately, he does seem to join Lord Zed's army and betray his friends, but I kinda doubt this is a legit thing. Number 6, the Ranger Slayer. Kimberly Hart was not a new character. She was actually the original Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger, and the Ranger that all the other guys in school had a crush on. But she is straight up a total badass. But for this point on the list, I want to talk about the Kimberly Hart of a different reality. In said alternate reality, the world of the Coinless, this version of Kimberly became a deadly Ranger named the Ranger Slayer under the mind control of the incredibly powerful Lord Drakon. As the Ranger Slayer, Kimberly piloted the Gravesword and was also the leader of the Promethea Rangers team, which included another powerful Ranger, Magna Defender, one of my favorites. She also wielded the bow/sword of darkness, and the Ranger Slayer initially worked for Lord Drakon before breaking free of his mind control. After Drakon's fall, the Ranger Slayer takes the place of Lord Drakon in the new timeline. Number 5, the original Omega Rangers. The Omega Rangers are a small but ancient faction or team of rangers that are specifically around to operate in the most dangerous and most remote areas of space, and they're powered by the classical elements of fire, water, earth, and air. Now originally, the team was around many millennia ago on the Morphin Master's homeworld of Safe Haven. They were originally composed of Bledsoe, the Red Ranger of Fire, Apathy, the Black Ranger of Air, the Purim Yellow Ranger of Earth, Haza, the Blue Ranger of Water, and one other, Spark, the Gold Ranger who represented the sun. But Spark, having learned the pain that comes with loss when he lost one of his fellow rangers, turned on the remaining rangers, being taken over by the possibilities of having death-defying powers. He became the Death Ranger, which, if you've seen our most powerful ranger video, is one of the most powerful rangers out there, even if he's evil. Despite that though, the Omega Rangers were able to stop and imprison Spark until he came back at a later date, as tends to be the case with most villains. Number 4, the Shattered. Going back to that whole Kimberly Hart thing, the followers of Drakon, his ranger sentries, most of whom have been lost without someone to follow, have tried to live normal lives in the new world under the rule of Kimberly Hart, the Ranger Slayer. But they find themselves in conflict with those who fought against Lord Drakon, people called the Coinless, who hold quite a bit of resentment against the sentries. So, while Kimberly is dealing with that conflict between those two factions, she learns of an old prison created by Drakon called the Deadlock. Leading her forces on a raid of the prison to free its prisoners, Kimberly stumbles upon a hidden cell holding an incredibly capable and mysterious prisoner, a ranger in a metal suit who it turns out to be Jason Lee Scott, the original Red Ranger. His rescue from the prison prompted a message to be sent out that brought Eclipta, the emissary of Dark Spectre, to the planet. Now, using a Black Dragon Zord's hand as a new Morphin diffuser, like the one that Drakon used to make the sentries in the first place, Kimberly convinced the other surviving rangers, Jason, Trini, and Zack, to use their coins to give literally everyone a portion of the Ranger power, putting them all on the grid and making them the Shattered, a whole army of Ranger-powered people. They put the beat down on Eclipta before the coins shattered and everyone went back to normal. Number 3, the Morphinot. This is kind of a cheat, as the Ranger the Morphinot becomes is not really new. This Ranger was a mysterious figure whose identity was unrevealed. They appeared in both Power Rangers in Space and Power Rangers Turbo. The Phantom Ranger hailed from the same homeworld as Zordon, known as Eltar. Now in the comics though, we learn that before he was known as the Phantom Ranger, this Ranger had a different alias, the Morphinot. As the Morphinot, over 10,000 years ago in the past, he was trapped inside the Morphin grid as a preventative measure to protect others from the evil that lurked around its perimeters. Hundreds of years in the past, the Morphinot ended up being freed from the Morphin grid and would go on to help the Squadron Rangers in their fight against the Dark Spectre. Eventually, the Morphinot became corrupted by the Dark Spectre, which he chose to do in order to protect the Squadron Rangers. His armor turned black, and although the Squadron Rangers would later defeat Dark Spectre, freeing the Morphinot from their influence, the Morphinot's armor would remain black, and they would take on the name of Phantom Ranger in their new form. Number 2, the Emissaries. The Emissaries are ancient warriors that represent the Morphin Masters, an ancient civilization dedicated to studying the Morphin grid. Now they each represent a different Ranger color, red, yellow, and blue, and what's cool about them is that they don't really have one solid form. They're constantly phasing in between different Ranger forms, taking on different Rangers from over the years, like Ninja Storm Red or Time Force Blue, etc, etc. These Emissaries actually used to be Rangers themselves, the Squadron Rangers, but during their battle with Dark Spectre, like we talked about before, they essentially become conduits of the grid, just letting its power consume them completely until they became one with it. Now, as these celestial beings, the Emissaries are supremely powerful guardians of the grid that exist outside of the realm of time and space, observing events across time and watching over the various Ranger teams that fight to protect their worlds. Such a cool concept. Finally, in at number 1, it's Yale of Sard. Okay, honestly, had no idea that a feline could be a Power Ranger, but I am so glad that that's the case. This is awesome. Okay, so Yale is a cat-like alien from the planet of Sard. Yale was originally the runt of the litter, which actually allowed him to survive when the rest of the family did not. Yale became empowered by the Morphin grid, which inadvertently caused a massive explosion and had the Omega Ranger arrive on Sard to apprehend the little cat. What's interesting is that Yale actually proved too strong for these already incredibly powerful Omega Rangers. Yale was eventually depowered and became like a pet for the Omega Rangers, living on their ship with them, and eventually saving the leader, Zack, from the Horrid. But eventually Yale comes into contact with the blue Omega Morpher thanks to a mysterious figure, the blue Emissary, like we talked about before. And man, Yale is such a cool looking Blue Ranger. His strength and forgiveness make him an excellent addition to the Omega team.
Number 10. Phone Pansy. During the Ninja Steel season of the show that ran in 2017 and 2018, the Rangers were forced into a gladiatorial-style intergalactic tournament called Galaxy Warriors. They faced many competitors who were trying to kill them and steal the Ninja Power Stars. Oh, that sounds important. One who actually came pretty close to besting the team was the contestant named Phone Pansy. As is implied by the name, he is a hybrid of a chimpanzee and a phone. Although he is a capable hand-to-hand combatant and can unleash basher bots upon his enemies, his real strengths come from the deception skills that his phone parts grant him. Not only can he use the speaker in his mouth to unleash a massive sonic boom that would send his enemies flying, but he could mimic voices with uncanny accuracy. This allowed him to imitate a ranger and then call up one of their teammates, who he would then draw into a trap and attack. The host of the Galaxy Warriors, Cosmo Royale, then used a Gigantify machine to turn Phone Pansy giant, forcing the Rangers to use their Zords to form the Ninja Steel Megazord and the Bull Rider Megazord. They defeated the giant monster, who promptly exploded. Okay, that's weird, but I think I'm following this okay so far. As long as the villains don't get any stranger than that, I should be fine. Number 9. Typeface. Oh come on, that's a keyboard! After the Ninja Steel season, fans of the Power Rangers were given the Super Ninja Steel season. Like Phone Pansy, Typeface is a contestant in the Galaxy Warriors. He could summon basher bolts and was an expert fighter, being able to hold his own against multiple Rangers at once, which is really impressive because he doesn't look like he'd be super mobile. He can fire lasers out of his hands and spacebar, which were powerful enough to incapacitate all 6 of the Rangers. And he is also a teleporter, but his real strength is more tech-based, which, yeah, I should hope so, otherwise the theming is kinda weird. He has a virus gun, which can infect the weapons of the Rangers, making them unable to effectively fight his with their Element Star Ninja Fire attack. The Rangers were eventually able to repair their weapons and attack Typeface, and Cosmo Royale repeated his strategy of growing Typeface into a giant monster who had to be defeated by a Megazord. However, this was a difficult task due to him being able to use his teleportation abilities to dodge several attacks and gain the upper hand for a while. However, the Rangers were eventually able to take him out with the Ninja Blaze Megazord's Ranger Blast final attack. Yeah, you gotta watch out for those. Number 8. Pandemonium. In the Mighty Morphin comic series, the new Green Ranger destroyed the Green Chaos Crystal, which left the infamous Lord Zed incapacitated. As he recovered in the Moon Palace, Zed's cronies discussed their options about what their next course of action should be. They considered eliminating their boss, but decided against it as it would require them to grow spines, and instead decided to try and capture the Green Ranger so that when Lord Zed awoke, he would have someone to vent his frustrations on other than them. They created a creature called Pandemonium, who was of course a panda who had super strength, as well as an entire arsenal of spears and axes sticking out of his back, which he could remove and use against the team. He could also give off massive energy blasts, which damaged anyone caught in his vicinity. The panda gave the team some trouble, but was defeated when the new Green Ranger showed up and used his dragon dagger to destroy the creature. Zed's cronies watched from afar and bemoaned that they had chosen too cute and cuddly of an animal to be their agent of destruction. Number 7. Horrid King. In the Power Rangers comic series, the Rangers and Zordon are not on good terms, as the Rangers have taken off in a ship searching for a means of defeating the Imperials in deep space, with the evil Lord Drakon serving as their guide. Things soon start going south when their ship stops working and they discover that they have been boarded by a frightening race of alien energy-draining vampires known as the Horrid, and their king. The Horrid were once a peaceful race of people, but their planet was destroyed when they attempted to control reality, trapping them in between dimensions, neither alive or dead. They learned that they could absorb other beings' life forces in order to take on a physical form. The Horrid King led them across the galaxy looking for beings that they could absorb before coming across the Rangers. The king and all of his people cannot be harmed by physical attacks when in a non-physical form, as all weapons simply pass through them. However, if they have fed enough to take on a physical form, they become vulnerable. This weakness was exploited by Drakon, who killed the Horrid King and took his place as the Horrid's leader. Number 6. Vargoyle. Vargoyle, the robotic villain, was one of the early inventions of Scrozzle, but when they discovered something called the Fury Cells, Vargoyle used them to become powerful beyond measure, but also evil. Scrozzle escaped and Vargoyle followed, but eventually agreed to work for Evox in exchange for the Beast Powers upgrade. He was sent after the Rangers, where he feigned being weaker than he was to lull them into a false sense of security before unleashing his full might when they least expected it. He manages to install a memory rewriting machine in a local TV transmitting tower to wipe everyone's memories of his boss's previous attacks. This was undone, and he was destroyed by Devon's Beast X cannon. He was revived by the villain Ryjack, who wanted to form an alliance with Evox. This revived Vargoyle had an upgraded golden body, but was also fitted with a compliance collar, which he of course was not thrilled about. His teleportation and weapon summoning powers are handy, and his beast powers give him a real edge between his cheetah speed and gorilla strength, but it was not long before this evil robot was taken out again, never to be rebuilt. Number 5. Snageye. This robotic general was created to serve the Void Queen during the second season of Dino Fury. He pledged his eternal loyalty to his queen, who demanded that he destroy the Rangers. He was given data on the Dino Fury Rangers' powers, which allowed him to easily defeat the 6 Rangers. The chessboard buckle on his torso contains a pocket dimension, which he was able to use to imprison his foes. It was only through the betrayal of the Void Knight that the Rangers were able to escape the pocket dimension. He then went up against the Red Ranger, who managed to destroy this robot bishop general using the Dino Knight strike. So, though he was only in one episode, the fact that he was able to absolutely wipe the floor with the Rangers is pretty impressive. Number 4. Wreckmate. Yet another Dino Fury villain. Wreckmate has a lot of themes going on at once. He is a robot who looks like a rook from a chess set, but he's also a pirate as well as a general. He's just a lot. He's a lot. He was built from the parts of a boat, but became a giant when the Void Knight gave him a Sporix. The Dino Fury Rangers fought him underwater in their Dino Fury Megazord warrior formation, but Wreckmate proved too powerful and was able to defeat the Megazord. Before he could destroy it, he was interrupted by the Moza Razor Zord and presumed dead. He entered a competition with his rival teammate Slither to see who could kill the most Rangers, with the loser having to leave forever, though both were of course unsuccessful and unable to score a point. He served the Void Queen soon after, often clashing with and failing to defeat the Rangers. He has shoulder-mounted cannons which can fire cannonballs, energy blasts, lasers, and torpedoes. As a pirate ship-themed robot chess piece, he was of course capable of surviving underwater, like a submarine, making him just as dangerous on land as he was on water. Number 3. General Tynemon. Going back to the Super Ninja Steel season, where the Rangers were involved with the whole Galaxy Warriors thing, Tynemon was the manager of one of the most famous fighters, Brax, but was hiding a small secret. It turns out that Tynemon was in fact a small creature who, embarrassed by his small stature, had constructed a robot body to make himself look bigger. Tynemon, Tiny Man, I get it, cute. So Tynemon was approached by the villainous Madame Odious, who offered to grow Tynemon to the size he desired if he and Brax would help her destroy the Rangers. He agreed and began a campaign against the heroes. His main weapon is his staff, which can create a protective barrier and can fire a rope line to ensnare and move his enemies. In his final battle with the Rangers, he is hit by the Gigantify Ray, letting him finally achieve his dream of being huge. This was short-lived, however, and he was defeated by the Ninja Steel Ultrazord Blast and died, never really having gotten the opportunity to enjoy his new size. Number 2. King Aredon. Our next villain was actually mentioned in passing by Zordon in Power Rangers Zeo all the way back in 1996, but we didn't get to actually meet this king until just last year in the Mighty Morphin comic book series. After Earth was weakened by the Altarian War and Earth's command center was destroyed, the ruler of the Automaton Dominion, King Aredon, decided to take advantage of the situation and sent scouts to the command center's ruins, where they tried to ambush the Red Ranger. He decided that Earth was ripe for the taking and declared himself ruler with the aid of his general, Count Karnakas. He offered to spare the Green Ranger's life if he stepped aside and allowed the king to destroy Zordon. When the Ranger refused, the two entered a heated battle, which was aided by Red Ranger Rocky, who helped the Rangers triumph over the evil king. Number 1. Leisure. This villain appeared in an episode of the Dino Supercharge season and is vaguely summer themed. There is so much going on visually with this character. She has an ice cream cone for an arm, and a lobster claw coming out of a sun hat for the other. She has fish pants and palm trees for eyes. The longer I look at this villain, the more I feel like I'm having a stroke. 100,000 years ago, Leisure used her vacation ray on the cavemen, which made them all want to take a break from their work and go on vacation. This got so bad that everyone almost starved as no one was hunting, but she was imprisoned in a cave and the effects of her beam were reversed, and as a result, we got hustle culture. She was accidentally released by the Rangers, and despite looking so odd, turned out to be extremely powerful, beating the 7 Rangers with ease before firing her vacation beam on the entire planet, making everyone, including the Rangers, just stop what they were doing to go on vacation. They eventually attacked Leisure with the Plesio Charge Megazord, but she used her ice cream arm triple scoop twist attack to defend herself. She was eventually defeated, and everyone got back to work. Yay!
Coming in at number 10 is Shredder. Now, while you may have heard of the TMNT villain Shredder, I bet you haven't heard of him as a Ranger. In 2019/2020's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover comic, the Turtles' greatest enemy and leader of the Foot Clan has managed to capture Tommy Oliver, who was trying to infiltrate the Ninja Clan for some other undisclosed reasons. With Tommy caught now, Shredder found it pretty simple to steal Tommy's Dragon Power Coin, allowing Shredder to corrupt it and use it for his own ends, turning himself into the Green Ranger. He gets all the normal Power Ranger power-ups alongside his own abilities as a Master Ninja, which makes him one hell of a threat. His look is really cool too, mixing both the look of the Green Ranger with Shredder's classic look to create a super imposing villain. Number 9. Amelia Jones. Power Rangers recently is continuing on in 2023 with a new series, Cosmic Fury. The new Power Rangers series will be a continuation of Power Rangers Dino Fury, except that now the Power Rangers will go to space. Very cool. But something big for Power Rangers also happens with Cosmic Fury, as it was announced that this season will have Power Rangers' first female Red Ranger, Amelia Jones, the current Pink Ranger for Dino Fury. It's important to point out that there have been a few female Red Rangers in the Power Rangers universe across both the shows and the comics over time, yet all of them only really appeared briefly. For example, Charlie, the evil Red Ranger from Power Rangers SPD, only appeared in a very small arc. The same is true for Lauren, who briefly appeared in Power Rangers Samurai. However, Cosmic Fury will be the first time a Power Rangers team will have a female Red Ranger for the whole season. Amelia was the very first character audiences were introduced to in Power Rangers Dino Fury, and it was through her search for the Dino Henge that the Dino Fury Power Rangers of Earth even came to be in the first place. Before you keep watching this video, make sure to drop a like if you like what you've seen so far. Anything helps when trying to grow our channel even further, so your support is appreciated. Thank you. But coming in at number 8 is the Teenage Mutant Turtle Rangers. So with Shredder now possessing the Dragon Coin, he joins up with Rita Repulsa, because if you're gonna have a crossover, you gotta get everyone involved, right? Somehow Shredder found a way to make it impossible for the Rangers to use their coins to morph, making it possible for him to come out on top in the fight against them, forcing them to retreat with the aid of Casey Jones. The Rangers, now unable to use their coins, agree to give the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles plus April O'Neil their power coins, turning the Turtles into Teenage Mutant Turtle Rangers, and I cannot lie here, it's pretty awesome. Instead of Jason, Kim, Zach, Trini, and Billy using their coins to help out in the fight, they put together ragtag sets of ninja-like armor and weapons. Now, as the Ninja Rangers, they team up with Casey and head to infiltrate the Technodome to try to free the imprisoned Tommy Oliver, while the Turtle Rangers go and kick some butt. It's really cool. Number 7, Archon. Okay, so Archon here isn't really a Power Ranger, but he is a former member of the Empowered, who are a group of beings gifted with a direct connection to the Morphin Grid's energy, kind of like Power Rangers, but not really. Archon, son of Invon and High Sword of Cersina, is suited up in what looks like samurai armor, with a sword and a shield, and this humanoid-looking chicken eagle alien thing is an elder on Safe Haven, and he is highly respected and seemingly highly capable. Although he plays more of a background role in the comics, seeming to just help protect the people of Safe Haven. Except for this one time when Hartoonian refugees showed up and he seemed to want to completely destroy them since their species was responsible for the downfall of his own, but luckily Zach, the Black Ranger, intervenes to stop this from happening, and it's just one big hullabaloo. But again, he isn't a Ranger, but he's just a really good character and he looks so awesome. So, sorry. Number 6, Ranger X. Yep, we're still looking at the TMNT Power Rangers crossover here, but that was volume 1. Thankfully, in 2022, we got the second volume and it has some equally awesome moments. Maybe this one isn't exactly awesome, but at least it's really cool. See, in volume 2, Casey Jones gets corrupted by the villains of Dimension X, and he managed to become Ranger X, an evil ranger. Casey's usual hockey stick weapons have been converted into an energy scythe, which is so cool, and he also wields 2 laser Eskrima. His ranger armor is like all black and white with a big red glowing X in the center. He's got these really cool spiked shoulder pads cause hockey, and he kicks some serious butt. It's just too bad that for the most part of the story, he is a bad guy. Or is he? You'll have to read it and find out. Number 5, the Dimension X Rangers. So Ranger X for Extreme got his powers by being given a morpher with an X on it. It turns out that there are actually 4 more of these X-themed morphers, and they apparently once belonged to the Power Rangers native to Dimension X, where General Krang has pretty much obliterated everything and has set up his shop. So these Power Rangers were pretty long gone by the time this story comes around. Well, during volume 2 of the comic, the Ninja Turtles head to the mysterious dimension while the Rangers stay on Earth and fight their fight. The Turtles end up stumbling upon these 4 Dimension X Ranger morphers, and in an awesome panel, we see them turn into the Dimension X Rangers. Now, with their own power coins and morphers, the Turtles are able to morph into a Ranger team all of their own, and they kick some serious butt. Number 4, the Solar Rangers. Debuting in May 2019, we got 6 Solar Rangers who were actually just a combination of 6 different Rangers from the canon that we've seen before. But the original 7 Solar Rangers were created by Praetor thousands of years ago when the Void was disconnected from the Morphin grid. The Solarix devices were used to sever this universe from the grid, but also to empower a team of Rangers to defend this universe until it could finally reconnect with the grid. Over time, as the Solar Rangers grew old, Praetor lost faith that the Void would ever be reconnected to the grid, and so he sought out each Ranger Solarix with the intent of destroying them. Unfortunately, he was able to bring down 6 of the Solar Rangers and their Solarix, but the 7th one, the Purple Ranger, managed to get out of there. Over time, the Purple Solarix was passed down from person to person until it landed at Alarion. She eventually split the crystal in her Solarix into 6 pieces to power up a new team of Solar Rangers, which was what we were talking about at the beginning of this entry. Number 3, the Promethea Rangers. That new team of Solar Rangers, the ones that debuted in May 2019, weren't just any old Rangers. This team was called the Promethea Rangers, and they each had experience on separate Rangers teams. Other than Ilarion, the Purple Solar Ranger, this team was made up of the Ranger Slayer, Kimberly Ann Hart, who is not someone to scoff at. One of my favorite Rangers, Magna Defender Mike Corbett, the second Yellow Zeo Ranger, Tanya Sloan, the Dino Charged Dark Ranger, Heckle, the Green Samurai Ranger, Cameron Watanabe, and the Red Space Ranger, Andros. So if you know anything about Power Rangers, you should know that none of these Rangers are pushovers, not even by a little bit. They will rock your shit. They were all on board the Promethea and were recruited by Grace Sterling to save the Rangers Lord Drakon had depowered. Things didn't go quite to plan, but if you want to know the details, you may have to do the necessary reading because I'm moving on. Number 2, the Mighty Mutant Power Rangers. Okay, I know, a lot of this list is TMNT and Rangers, but look, I've just been reading it and I find it to be so much fun, so let me just indulge here, and also you should definitely check out this comic because it's pretty cool. Okay, so in volume 2 of TMNT/Power Rangers, the Rangers all lose access to being able to morph and are left powerless yet again like they were in volume 1. But thankfully, Billy and Donatello have been chumming around together, running experiments and having a good old grand smartass time. One such experiment seemed to be with the mutagen that turned the Turtles into what they are, and with the power coins themselves. The results of all that experimenting was the Mighty Mutant Power Rangers. Essentially, this is the 6 Mighty Morphin Rangers turning themselves into mutated dinosaur versions of themselves. So they each become an anthropomorphic mastodon, pterodactyl, triceratops, saber-toothed tiger, Tyrannosaurus rex, and I guess a dragon, which isn't really a dinosaur, but it's just so cool. And finally, in at number 1, it's the Ranger Sentries. The Ranger Sentries were essentially an army created by a corrupted and evil version of Tommy Oliver, the infamous and insanely powerful Lord Drakon. In the world of the Coinless and alternate reality, point, Drakon created a whole army of humans who wore mass-produced Ranger armor. The Mastodon sentries, in their super cool black and white costumes, acted as like the police force and the bulk of the army in this world. The pink pterodactyl sentries were the long-range sniper infantry in support for the Mastodons. The green Zeo sentries were the mobile infantry, and they also had these awesome tank mechs that were super cool. The silver space sentries were the air support, and they had super sweet jetpacks and energy blasters, so obviously super cool there as well. Jetpacks are always a win. But then we had the Jungle Fury Rhinos, who were essentially tanks, just big, hulking, strong guys in massive armor, also very cool. There were blue samurai sentries, and they seemed to be the melee foot soldiers of the army, as a force of them with the Mastodon sentries invaded the city of Corinth. And we also got these awesome dino-charged gold sentries who had these massive shields and super heavy firepower, and they would make up shield walls. They were just so dope. Next up would be the Saber-tooth sentries in yellow, who seem to act as lieutenants, and they are the step under the Tyrannosaurus sentries, the Red Rangers of the armies, who serve as the personal elite guard of Drakon and the other evil forces like Rita Repulsa and Scorpina. That was a lot, I know, but as you might have picked up, each of these class of soldiers were based on a ranger from across the Power Rangers universe, which is really interesting. After Drakon went through and took the morphers from at least one of every single team that has ever existed, so that's kinda cool. Also a little scary, but. Number 10, Tosin Oduye. Tosin is such a cool character. Okay, so as a kid, Tosin Oduye saw the way that Wakanda became a socially isolated nation who believed themselves superior and seemed to always attract war. The Marube, the tribe Tosin belongs to, began to separate a bit from the main Wakandan people. They hated the way Wakanda used vibranium for tech, so they instead found a way to refine the vibranium and flow with it. They gave themselves vibranium tattoos, and some in their tribe, who trained hard enough, could have the vibranium flow with them, granting them some pretty cool powers. It's like they harness the energy of vibranium and can use it to move extremely fast, or unleash vibranium energy blasts, or even seemingly grant himself a vibranium armor. Last thing I want to say is that the covers for the issues of this volume of Black Panther are just so cool. Definitely check it out.
Number 9, Aleph Chernikov. Aleph Chernikov is a young mutant hero who appears in the Wolverine Patch flashback series by Larry Hama. This was a miniseries that came out earlier in 2022 and covered an untold tale from Patch's adventures in Madripoor back in the good old days. Here, Patch works to help 3 Russian mutants who have escaped their government, but have been tracked to Madripoor. Madripoor is military, royal armed guards, as well as S.H.I.E.L.D. and Russia themselves appear to be after the mutants, but Patch, Archie, and Tiger intervene in hopes of helping the 3. In the end they do, and among them is Aleph, the child of the other 2 mutants, David and Reza. Aleph appears to be the main focus of everyone's efforts when it comes to hunting them down. They possess powerful healing abilities, psionic abilities, and possibly even the power to manipulate reality. But they're also a child, so of course everyone's like, we gotta protect this baby.
Number 8, Bitewing. There's nothing that wins me over more than a puppy. But then DC goes and gives a puppy a 3-legged gray blue-eyed Pipple puppy and gives it to Nightwing, probably one of the best members of the Bat family. And then they go and give it the nickname of Bitewing. I literally teared up just typing this part because of the overload of adorable that I got while looking at this. Haley the dog was being chased and mistreated by some teenagers when Dick Grayson stepped in, rescued, and adopted her. Now, the first sidekick turned full-on hero in DC Comics has his very own super pet, especially after she was given a costume and the ability to speak from a 5th dimensional imp. Now, she fights alongside Nightwing as Bitewing, and it's cute. It's very cute.
Number 7, Escapade. I love Escapade, and I also love her BFF Morgan Red. While initially introduced as a criminal in the Marvel Voices Pride issue of this year, I think it's safe to say that Escapade and her friend Morgan and his genetically engineered flying turtle pal, Hibbert, will soon become a team of mutant heroes instead of anti-heroes. I mean, even if they are criminals who steal stuff, they really only try to steal stuff from the worst people, which makes them still pretty altruistic. Escapade is a trans mutant named Sheila Sexton, whose powers involve swapping places with whoever she decides to use her mutant powers on. This can be someone as low level as a random passerby, or someone as high level as another superpowered being who is about to defeat her, or even the President of the United States. So much potential for this power.
Number 6, Bolt. Since the live-action Black Adam movie was announced, DC decided that they would also put out a Black Adam solo series for the first time, and in the first issue, it puts Black Adam on the ropes of mortality. In response to this, Black Adam finds his descendant, Malik Adam White, a medical student living in the Bronx. Basically, Black Adam just tells this guy he is going to succeed Black Adam and inherit his power, and then he forces him by having one of his people pop a cap in Malik, and the only way to save himself is to take Black Adam's ring and say Shazam. While Black Adam calls Malik White Adam, Malik gives a good little lecture about the inherent racism there. So he prefers to go by Thunderbolt or just straight up Bolt. From what I've read, I really like his character, and he is supposed to represent a sort of form of redemption for the character of Black Adam because, as they say in the comic, there is no true redemption for Black Adam. Not at this point, at least.
Number 5. Amass. Amass is a really cool new mutant. They made their first appearance in Steve Orlando's Marauder series in issue number 4. Amass is a mutant of Threshold, the oldest mutant civilization to have ever existed. They, along with 2 other mutants, had their minds stored within a codex, hoping that they would arrive in the future after being restored and would be able to seek help for their people who were on the brink of extinction when they last left them in the past. Amass's mutant powers allowed them to physically combine mutants and their powers together, joining together to create one basically big ball of mutants, which kinda looks like one big being. Hence their mutant name of Amass. This appears to both psychologically and physically combine whichever mutants they choose with themselves, with their new combined form also possessing all the powers of said mutants, which I think is pretty nuts.
Number 4. Grey Wolf. Of the characters I'm talking about on this list, my favorites are absolutely a 3-way tie between Tosin, Bitewing, and this guy, Grey Wolf. Okay, so Lex Luthor was running a crime-fighting experiment around the world trying to create a group of his own similar to Batman Incorporated, with the ultimate goal of creating Abyss, his own Batman. But then he abandoned all these projects that then went wild doing their own thing. So Batman Incorporated's international team, being led by Ghostmaker, go on a mission to bring them down in Batman 2022 Annual Volume 3 Number 1 from July. Their first mission is to Kazbek, Chechnya, to take on Grey Wolf. Grey Wolf was unleashed on the city to help its citizens who had been exposed to Lazarus resin that had made them all extremely violent. With Ghostmaker, he was able to cure the residents and join Batman Inc. as a good guy, but he displayed enough skill to best Dark Ranger, El Gaucho, and Batman of Japan in a 3-on-1 fight, and he beat Wingman 1-on-1. Also, he's like 7 feet tall minimum. Super cool.
Number 3. Black Mist. Black Mist is a completely new character who is not yet a member of Batman Incorporated, but who might end up becoming one in the future. She was actually one of my favorite characters to appear in Batman Inc. issue number 1 from 2022. Not only does she look like a badass, but she also seems to be wary of joining up with Batman Inc. Black Mist appears as a sort of consulting detective in issue number 1 of the 3rd volume of this series. We don't know much about her yet, but she seems to be working with Batman Incorporated to help them solve the mystery behind just who is killing all the teachers of Batman and Ghostmaker, and why and how this perpetrator is doing that. One thing we do know about Black Mist straight out of the gate is that she seems to have history with the Knight. The two recognize each other and are presented as friendly to one another.
Number 2. Igrow the Unbreakable. Okay, so this one definitely took me by a bit of a surprise. Coming out of the 2022 volume of Thunderbolts, specifically issue number 2, we are introduced to Igrow. Igrow is a super interesting little troll-looking monster who lives peacefully on Monster Isle. But you see, Igrow heard of the monster exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, so naturally he expected to go and see his own statue. He just had to make sure that it captured his true beauty. But what the heck? They didn't have a statue for Igrow the Unbreakable? An insult like that could not fly, so he obviously had to destroy the other statues for the other monsters, which brought the Thunderbolts to fight him. Instead, after Igrow punched Power Man through the roof with his big lava hands and incapacitated Persuasion with his telepathic abilities, which helped him learn English, he surrendered to America Chavez and explained the situation. Then, he was invited to join the team. Yay! Happy ending for the little steroid Yoda.
Number 1. Nightmite. Just like Superman has Mr. Mxyzptlk and Batman has Batmite, Dick Grayson, the superhero known as Nightwing, now has his own imp superfan from the 5th dimension, Dick Dixel, though Dixel prefers to be known as Nightmite. While it might seem strange to put an imp from the 5th dimension on a superhero list given, some of their track records, Nightmite is genuinely well-meaning and helpful, unlike most other imps who are somewhat mischievous or just downright troublesome. Being an imp from the 5th dimension also means that Dixel can be super powerful, as he has magical, reality-bending, and warping powers. Nightmite made his first appearance very recently in the comics, as of the time of this recording, in issue number 98 of Nightwing, which was released in November of 2022.
And coming in at number 10, Vanish. Image Comics seems to be going back to its gritty, magical roots with Vanish. Vanish follows Oliver Harrison. This chosen one peaked at the age of 14 when he took down the leader of the biggest threat to his universe in a mystical place called the Everkeep. Now, as an adult, this chosen one indulges in every vice he can, living a mediocre, pretty sloppy life. Until a group of heroes show up called the Prestige, who are actually the followers of the threat that Oliver took down when he was 14. Now, using his magical abilities, Oliver takes it on himself to play the part of a hero in the disguise of a villain to bring down the heroic Prestige. The comic builds up this super cool, magic but violent world. It's incredibly gritty but filled with dark fantasy and magic, and it's just so cool. Number 9, Rogue Sun. Dylan Siegel has been living life with his mom when he's suddenly called to a reading of his estranged father's will. Now, during that reading, he discovers his dear old dad was a superhero called Rogue Sun, and now Dylan has been granted the superhero mantle for himself. Now, this super angsty teen is in charge of protecting our world from the forces of the supernatural, while also trying to figure out who exactly took down his dad. The art in this story is awesome, and Rogue Sun's suit is incredibly cool. With really cool fire-based abilities and a whole lot of family drama, Rogue Sun from Image Comics is a fun story you should definitely check out. Number 8, Dr. Multiverse. Alright, breaking away from Image Comics now and landing firmly in DC's territory, we have Maya Chamara, Dr. Multiverse. Dr. Multiverse is alone in the multiverse, meaning there is only one of her. Originating from Earth 8, Maya was bathed in cosmic energies and was granted the powers of the multiverse, which basically means that she's able to see variants and alternate versions of people living in different realities. She can see people and objects passing between dimensions, and she has the ability to locate and track anything she has come into contact with throughout the multiverse. She also has access to vast energy manipulation abilities, which let her fire blasts and create shields, but she can totally open up portals to other universes and send people back to their own universe. This former member of the Retaliators became part of the Justice League Incarnate, using her multiversal powers to help this multiversal team of heroes. She's like a DC version of Marvel's Captain Universe, Starbrand, and America Chavez all just mixed into one, and I think she's pretty alright. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, make sure you drop a like to let us know you want more videos similar to this one. Just one little click's all you gotta do. Thanks. Number 7, Batwalker. I'm gonna be honest, I just assumed this had already been done in the past, but no. Dinosaur versions of DC superheroes had not been done before. I'm alright with this because that means this year we were treated to the Jurassic League, a DC story that takes place on an Earth where heroes like Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman are actually dinosaurs that protect the puny human race from the carnivore dinosaurs who would eat them. There's a Brachiosaurus Supersaur from another world who looks eerily like Superman, a Triceratops Wonder Dawn hailing from the Isle of Trimascara, and on the outskirts of Growltham City, we are introduced to Batwalker, an Allosaurus who dresses up like a bat after the loss of his parents at the hands of an insane Dilophosaurus who goes by the name Jokerzard. I mean, there's even a panel of this comically green Allosaurus throwing a stone batarang, and it's just something that I never knew I needed in my life until this point. I'm just so glad it exists. Number 6, The Spirit of Variance, Vox Igni. Sean Cassidy is not a new character by any stretch of the imagination, but in Legion of X number 7 by Marvel, he does become something completely new. Sean was betrayed by Moira McTaggart, who stole his face so she could enter into Krakoa. So when he was brought back to life, he was rather upset. Now there's a whole thing going on as well with the character of Legion right now that I just can't get into, but essentially a character named Mother Righteous offers Legion a gift in the form of a certain kind of power. David Haller refuses this gift, but luckily for us, Sean Cassidy was there to take it instead. Making a deal with Mother Righteous, Cassidy was given, or I guess possessed by, a cast out spirit of vengeance called the Spirit of Variance. This transformed Banshee into a flaming skull version of himself named Vox Igni, which is the voice of fire, and if a name like that doesn't sound cool to you, then just look at this character. Good golly, he's awesome. Number 5. Bat Prince. Another alternate version of Batman, I know, but he belongs to probably one of my favorite alternate reality stories to come out of DC Comics, Dark Knights of Steel. This story takes place in a world of medieval fantasy where the Wayne family ruled their kingdom until the mother and father of Superman came to Earth. The L family house became rulers of the land after a horrible attack on the Wayne family. Now, as the surviving son of the Waynes, Bruce serves as both a knight and son to the L family, with his network of Robins and his brilliant mind. But as the world is at each other's throats in this story, this Bat Prince learns about the actions that led to his birth and the powers he now possesses as a half-Kryptonian Dark Knight. Dark Knights of Steel that came out this year in 2022 just has so many interesting and fresh takes on classic DC characters. It's fresh and fun, and I got a variant cover of the first issue and it looks so sweet. Maybe one day I'll let you guys see it. Maybe. But definitely read the story. Definitely do it. Number 4. Miracle Man. Miracle Man is also not a new character. In fact, Marvel's Miracle Man is one of comics' most dramatic publishing debacles, coming back from 1954. Decades of rights battles over the character meant that he kind of bounced around publishers and then disappeared from the pages of comics altogether for a long time, which is why it seemed way too good to be true when Marvel announced in 2013 that it had acquired the rights to Miracle Man. Now, over the years, the company has attempted to bring the character back, but even more legal issues kind of stopped that from being able to happen. But luckily, starting in October 2022, Neil Gaiman finally continued the Silver Age arc that he had created for the character, with Marvel planning a number of other Miracle Man books. So now, after all this time, we get both one of the newest and kind of one of the oldest characters all wrapped up into one awesome Miracle Man, Marvel Man, Mickey Moran, whatever you want to call him, shaped package. Number 3. Abyss. Alright, before you jump on me in the comments, this isn't the villain Abyss. That guy was Lex Luthor's own evil Batman, who was honestly kinda cool, but he did not last very long. Abyss was defeated by Batman, who got some massive help from a Bodnesian police officer named Detective Kea, who helped Batman not only survive, but even forced Abyss to retreat after he had defeated most of Batman Incorporated, which led him straight into a defeat at the hands of the Dark Knight himself. Now, after Abyss had been defeated, Kaya found some of the villain's equipment and decided to hunt down the ones who had ended her parents' lives. There's a lot of parallels between Batman and the characters in and around him in the later issues of Batman Volume 3 that came out this year in 2022. Anyways, Batman offered to help Kaya, but in helping her, he also talked her into just arresting the criminals instead of doing what she was planning to do, which I'm sure you can imagine what that was. She wasn't brought into Batman Inc., but she is now another ally of Batman, and I hope she gets some more appearances in the comics from this point on because the costume's pretty cool. Number 2. The Joneses. How about a whole family of superheroes for this spot? And not just that, but also some social and political commentary wrapped up into it. That sounds like so much fun. Not really. Anyways, out of AWA Studios comes The Joneses, which is a spin-off of another AWA Studios comic called The Resistance, and it focuses on a suburban family who have gained superpowers after a global pandemic known as the Great Death. All 4 family members, mother, father, sister, and brother, were all transformed into something superhuman, but unfortunately, the world has begun to embrace fascism, born of fear of the pandemic and the superpowered individuals that have appeared known as the Reborns. Jones. The Joneses face some pretty scary consequences if they are exposed as reborns, and so they are presented with the dilemma of using their abilities for good at the risk of exposing themselves and inviting danger, or just laying low and staying out of the way. It's an interesting little idea for a comic book, and the global pandemic idea seems a little bit familiar. I don't know why. So I found it fun to just jump into this little 2022 comic from AWA Studios, and maybe you will too. Number 1. Gutson Glory. If you're part of the Thunderbolts, are you really a hero? Yes you are. The problem for me and this list is that when Gutson Glory first appeared in Thunderbolts Volume 4 Number 1 from August 2022, we weren't really given much information on the guy, and we still haven't been really, which makes my job way harder. He was placed on Hawkeye's Thunderbolts team under the Mayor of New York, Luke Cage. The only reason given for this character's introduction to the team was that apparently having a, quote, man of mystery would do wonders for the team's public relations. That's actually the reason. There's literally nothing else given about why he's here. He is a big stocky guy with cyborg body parts and an absolutely insane amount of weaponry, including a particle rupture laser, which I don't even want to imagine what that thing does to a person. It just sounds horrible. He also looks a bit like Cable, as he's a totally 90s cyber-inspired warrior, but just more military and not nearly as old as Cable, with absolutely no information about his backstory, again, or his training. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marvel. Please change this. Gutson is cool, okay? Thank you.
Number 10. Don Juan Kyote. Our number 10 entry is really more of an honorable mention than anything else, but I think he's worth talking about. Don Juan is a character that appears in the original Star Wars comic book series that released only a month after the first Star Wars movie was released in 1977. Don Juan is based off of the classic literature character Don Quixote, and is an old librarian who was obsessed with the extinct Jedi Order and spent much of his time researching them and cataloging antiques from their order. When his Jedi museum is shut down by the Imperials, he loses his mind and starts to think that he is a Jedi whose sacred mission is to travel the galaxy fighting for peace. While most Jedi are hiding and avoiding attention, Don Juan openly wields his yellow lightsaber despite the risks. He is surprisingly effective, surviving multiple injuries and cutting down dangerous enemies like Hellhounds and the villainous Cloudhopper gang. In his greatest act of bravery, he single-handedly stood up to a giant behemoth creature. He has minimal force sensitivity, and the only trick he can pull off is the occasional mind trick, but his willingness to never stop doing what is right proves that he has the heart of a true Jedi. True, he's not an actual Jedi Knight, and certainly isn't a Jedi Master. But he first appeared in 1978, when the writers only had the original Star Wars to go off of. So the term Jedi Master hadn't even been introduced yet. Which is actually why I bring him up, because through him we get to see a very different take on what the Jedi are and their history, going off of the very sparse information we were given about them in the first film. Now, on to the real Jedi. Number 9. Ganner Rhysode. Ganner was a Jedi Knight of the New Jedi Order, known for his desire to be a hero and his brash self-confidence and flamboyant nature. He was one of the frontline Jedi during the Yuuzhan Vong War, where he received his signature facial scar, which he kept to remind himself not to be overconfident. While on a mission with Jacen Solo, he held off hundreds of enemy forces by himself, while Solo sabotaged the World Brain. He was slain in the end due to being hilariously outnumbered, and never lived long enough to be an official Jedi Master, but his epic final battle did result in him becoming a legendary and invincible figure in the folklore of the enemy races, known as the Ganner. This is so impressive that I had to include him, despite him technically only being a Jedi Knight. So in other words, he's on this list, but we do not grant him the rank of Master. Which is outrageous. It's unfair. The rest of the Jedi on this list are full-on Jedi Masters. And before you start whining about how the list is about unstoppable Jedi, yet some of the featured Jedi get killed, it's a figure of speech. And if you want to get really pedantic, when Jedi die, they become one with the Force, so really, none of them are ever truly stopped, as they continue on in some form. Moving on. Number 8. Asharid Het. Asharid was the son of an ex-Jedi Knight named Sharidhet, who had exiled himself to Tatooine and became a Tusken warlord. Asharid was trained by his father in the ways of the Jedi independently from the original order, as well as the ways of the Sand People who had adopted them. When he was 15, he slayed a krayt dragon, and once his father was slain by the bounty hunter Aurra Sing, he joined the Jedi Order and was trained by Ki-Adi-Mundi and Anya Kuro. Despite being a human, he was known for wearing traditional Tusken face coverings and wielded 2 green lightsabers, his own and his late father's. He eventually became a Jedi Knight and was a fierce and cunning warrior during the Clone Wars. He was paired up with Anakin Skywalker, which was awkward due to Anakin's experience with the Sand People in Attack of the Clones. Anakin vented his frustrations by pretending that his enemies in a battle were Sand People and brutally cutting them down. In his madness, he attacked Asharid, who was armed only with a gaffy stick. Asharid disarmed Anakin, revealed he was human, and told Anakin that he would keep his dark secret. Now, let me say that again so you understand how impressive that is. He was attacked by a lightsaber-wielding Anakin Skywalker, who even at this young age was considered one of the best duelists and most powerful Force users in the Order. He had a stick, and he defeated and disarmed Anakin. He was eventually made a Jedi Master and managed to survive Order 66, which is obviously pretty rare and impressive. He returned to Tatooine and became a Tusken warlord and eventually turned to the dark side, becoming the Dark Lord of the Sith after Palpatine's death. As Darth Krayt, he was even more powerful and relentless, but even during his time as a Jedi, he was one of the strongest members of the Order. Number 7. Nomi Sunrider. Nomi was the wife of a man who was training to become a Jedi Knight. This obviously doesn't gel with the whole no attachments thing that caused Anakin and Padme so much trouble, or the whole trained from birth element of the Jedi, but keep in mind, this character was introduced in 1993, almost a decade before these elements of Jedi training were revealed in the prequels. When her husband was killed, she decided to become a Jedi herself. She was essential in ending the Freedon Nad uprising on Onderon, and was one of the many Jedi to fight in the Great Sith War against Exar Kun. When fighting Exar's apprentice Keldroma, she used the Force to sever his connection to the Force, thus ending the war. She rose through the ranks of the Order and eventually became one of the most revered Grand Masters of the Jedi Order. Number 6. Seba Sabatine. Seba was a Barabel who was trained to be a Jedi Knight on her home planet independently of the new Jedi Order. She trained several Padawans on her own planet, which were known as the Wild Knights. When the Yuuzhan Vong War broke out, she took her forces and joined Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order, being one of the most essential players in the conflict. At the war's conclusion, she was made a Jedi Master. During the Dark Nest Crisis, she successfully dueled a Sith, which although Obi-Wan would claim that Sith Lords are Jedi's speciality, this is statistically extremely untrue, with only the most capable Jedi being able to go toe-to-toe with a true Sith. She was the one who trained Leia as a Jedi before joining the Jedi High Council. She was a key warrior in the Second Galactic Civil War, when anti-Jedi sentiment, fostered by Galactic Alliance Chief of State Nasari Dalla, caused Luke to be exiled. Sebo became the new Grand Master of the Order, deposing the Grand Master Dalla had installed. She then led a coup against the corrupt Chief of State. After this, Luke took the Order back and Sebo was made one of the Triumvirate, the group that replaced the position of Chief of State in the Galactic Alliance. She also personally defeated one of the avatars of the dark side entity Abeloth, helping Luke save the galaxy yet again. Number 5. Satil Shan. Satil Shan is the descendant of the lead characters of my favorite Star Wars story, Knights of the Old Republic, Revan and Bastila Shan. Being descended from some of the goats, she is naturally an extremely powerful Jedi of the Old Republic era, leading both Jedi and Republic forces during the Great Galactic War, with her arrival turning the tide of the Battle of Alderaan. She is an extremely skilled duelist, having defeated the Sith Lord Darth Malgus. She was called by the Force on an odyssey across the galaxy, which led her to discovering the long-lost Jedi Order homeworld of Tython. For achieving this, she was named the new Grand Master of the Jedi Order. She led Republic forces to victory against the Sith Emperor, who planned to end all life in the galaxy, and later actually teamed up with Darth Mar in order to defeat the fanatical cult that had been inspired by and was now being led by the spirit of her ancestor, Darth Revan. Number 4. Kip Durham. Kip Durham was one of the first students of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order, outpacing his fellow Padawans in a matter of weeks when he began his training relatively late. He became hungry for the knowledge of the Force and was possessed by the ghost of the Sith Lord Exar Kun, who boosted his powers to be able to defeat Luke. He went on a rampage against surviving Imperials using the doomsday weapon the Sun Crusher. His position was ended with Luke's help, and he began a quest for redemption that made him one of Luke's best pupils and one of the first Jedi Masters of the New Order. Against Skywalker's wishes, he led the Jedi to war against the threat of the Yuuzhan Vong in the near-apocalyptic war for the fate of the galaxy, which he saw through to victory before becoming one of Luke's leading advisors on the Jedi High Council. He was also a key player in the Second Galactic Civil War when Darth Caedus took control of the government. Kip was one of the strongest Jedi in the history of the Order and was Luke's prize student, with some believing he was even more powerful than Luke himself. Number 3. Mitra Surik. This is a Jedi Master you actually might be more familiar with than you realize. In Knights of the Old Republic 2, you play as a character known as the Jedi Exile. The race, gender, and name of the character are determined by the player in the context of the game, but canonically, this character is Mitra Surik. Mitra was a Jedi Knight who followed Revan to battle during the Mandalorian Wars, eventually becoming a general. Her actions at the Battle of Malachor V ended the war in the Republic's favor, but resulted in the deaths of many soldiers on both sides of the conflict. She was expelled from the Jedi Order, but eventually returned during the Dark Wars and defeated 3 Sith Lords, Darth Nihilus, Darth Sion, and Darth Traya. She reformed the Jedi Order and was given the rank of Jedi Master. After this, Mitra left in search of the long-missing Revan to help him defeat the Sith Emperor, who was planning an invasion. They attacked the Emperor, but were betrayed by their ally, Lord Scourge, resulting in her death. Despite this, she continued to help the Republic cause, keeping Revan company as a Force spirit while he was kept in stasis for years, and leading other Jedi Knights to rescue him and help him defeat the Emperor before she left to become one with the Force. So, my point is that Mitra can be killed, but she can't be stopped. Number 2. Lord Hoth. Remember during Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon Jinn is telling the Council that he thinks Darth Maul is a Sith Lord, and they all scoff at the idea, saying that the Sith have been extinct for almost 1,000 years? Well, the reason they were extinct for almost 1,000 years was the Jedi Master known as Lord Hoth. Hoth joined the Jedi Order with the explicit goal of single-handedly ending the Sith threat. And he didn't let anything stop him from achieving this. He became the Battle Master of the Jedi Temple, as well as the Supreme Commander of the Republic military. He led his forces against the Sith Lord Skir Khan during the New Sith Wars, surviving harsh conditions, low supplies, and the dwindling morale of his forces. When he discovered that the Sith was planning on unleashing the dark side power known as a thought bomb to end the lives of everyone rather than face defeat, Hoth confronted him and sacrificed himself. He died, but he accomplished his goal, and the Sith didn't return for almost 1,000 years, ensuring centuries of peace for the galaxy. Number 1. Coleman Trebor. Coleman Trebor was a Verk from the planet Sembla, who was considered one of the greatest Jedi of the Republic era. He had considerable diplomatic abilities and was known for his ability to peacefully settle interplanetary disputes without ever drawing his lightsaber. Due to his species having 360-degree vision, he was also one of the Order's best lightsaber combatants. When Chancellor Palpatine was almost assassinated by a group of assassin droids, he and Shaak Ti took out all of the droids without being scathed. He was made a Jedi Master and member of the Council after the death of Yarael Poof. During the Battle of Geonosis, he defeated several Geonosians and battle droids and was able to use his impressive Force stealth powers to sneak up on Count Dooku and attack him. Okay, to be honest, I ran out of time writing this and didn't get a chance to finish reading his Wikipedia article, but unless he was killed like embarrassingly easily by someone right after this, I'm totally confident giving him the title of the most unstoppable Jedi Master in all of Star Wars.
Number 10. Emperor Marco Ragnos. Marco Ragnos is a pretty spooky looking Sith Lord and Emperor. He battled Sith Lord Simus to become the new ruler of the Sith Empire, and take for himself the title of Dark Lord of the Sith. In his battle against Simus, he defeated him by separating his head from his body. Ragnos was a manipulative sort as Emperor and managed to hold onto his rule for hundreds of years by pitting his rivals against one another, thereby eliminating them as threats to his own rule. Even after his death, Ragnos' presence was felt, and he reappeared as a Force Ghost, informing those who fought over his position that only the most worthy would succeed him. Millennia later, an attempt was actually made to even resurrect Ragnos using energy pulled from the Force through various Force nexuses found throughout the galaxy, and this attempt actually almost succeeded. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you think to yourself, man, I wish they did more Star Wars content, guess what? We have done some of that. You can go check out our Star Wars playlist for even more. Number 9. Savage Opress. Savage Opress is an interesting figure. He first appeared in Star Wars The Clone Wars. He is the younger brother of Darth Maul, who, like his brother, would also become a Sith Lord. However, he was also a Night Brother as well on his home world. As a Night Brother, he was chosen by Asajj Ventress to become her mate, pledging himself fully to her, and being bent by the Night Sisters' magics to obey her. To prove his loyalty to her, he even murdered his own brother, not Darth Maul of course, but instead his brother Farrell. Eventually, Opress would escape Ventress' control, breaking the spell that the Night Sisters had cast over him, and breaking off from both Ventress and his master Count Dooku. He would then go on to join up with Darth Maul, who eventually took him on as his own apprentice. Number 8. Darth Plagueis. Did you ever hear of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. Darth Plagueis was the Sith Master of Darth Sidious, who many of course know more commonly by his other name, Emperor Palpatine. Plagueis himself had an obsession that runs all the way back to actually the creation of the Sith, and in fact could be cited as kind of the reason for the initial split in the Force. He wanted to discover the secret to eternal life, and eventually developed somewhat of an ability to prevent death and create even life. However, this ability would not save him in the end, as his apprentice Darth Sidious would eventually betray him, killing him in his sleep so that he might become the new master, taking Plagueis' power for himself. Plagueis is first mentioned in the prequel film Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. Here, Emperor Palpatine tells Anakin the legend of Plagueis as he attempts to kinda lure him to the dark side. Although right after that, Anakin's basically like, I think this guy's a Sith Lord. Here, Emperor Palpatine refers to his former master as Darth Plagueis the Wise. It was likely because of Plagueis' pursuit of knowledge in bioengineering that Palpatine himself was in a fashion able to prolong his own life, although he too would obviously fail to become truly immortal, at least as far as we know. I hope that's where it stays. I hope he's gone. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine Emperor Palpatine just comes up again and we're like, oh my gosh, this guy. Number 7. Darth Malgus. Darth Malgus was originally known by his given name Aredon. As Aredon, he was raised in a part of space that was loyal to the Empire, and when his Force sensitivity first manifested, when he killed a servant, he was sent to the Sith Academy for further training, which honestly makes a lot of sense. If you know the Force kind of seems to be strong with you and then you kill someone, definitely time for the Sith Academy. He first appeared in the Deceived trailer for the video game Star Wars The Old Republic. Following his training, he became a Sith warrior, serving in the Imperial Army. As an apprentice to Darth Vindican, he took the name of Darth Malgus for himself. After suffering a dramatic defeat and injury on Alderaan, he was forced to permanently wear a respirator. Initially, his attempt to invade Alderaan had actually been successful, with him actually launching a pretty efficient surprise attack, but afterwards the Republic managed to push back the Sith in response with their own successful counterattacks, and that's where he got pretty badly injured. Number 6. Emperor Darth Revan. Darth Revan is an interesting one. Not many knew of the character's relevance as a Sith Lord, due to the Sith history only being known, of course, to Sith cultists throughout the galaxy. As such, Revan's name was mainly unknown, lost to the sands of time. Revan, however, would have a Stormtrooper Legion named after them because, fun fact, Stormtrooper Legions are apparently typically named after Sith Lords, ancient Sith Lords. In truth, Revan was a former Jedi Knight who left the Order and ended up becoming the Dark Lord of the Sith. They formed a Sith Empire, but eventually became an amnesiac who was retrained and indoctrinated into the Jedi Order, later actually used to fight against the very Sith Empire they had once built. Revan is actually the character that you play as in the game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and can be customized to look however you prefer them to look, with you also choosing their gender. In canon, however, Revan was established as male, with the light side ending of the game being established in lore as the canon ending, so just so you know that. Number 5. Darth Talon. While I feel like female Sith Lords are weirdly rare, Talon is a great one who really makes up for the lack of quantity of Sith ladies with just straight up quality. Talon herself is visually striking, covered head to toe in Sith tattoos. Each of these tattoos were earned through ritual combat. She was the apprentice initially of Sith Lord Darth Ryan, but would betray him at the command of Dark Lord of the Sith Emperor Darth Krayt, separating his head from his body with her lightsaber, as, you know, a lot of Sith Lords love to do that. Talon would become one of 2 of Krayt's most loyal followers and apprentices, and when he was eventually defeated, she actually ended up going into hiding, continuing to operate in the shadows, striving to serve the needs and accomplish the goals of the One Sith, which is sometimes also known as the New Sith Order. Darth Talon was created by John Ostrander and Jan Duursema, and was first introduced in the Dark Horse comic series Star Wars Legacy. Number 4. Ajunta Pall. Ajunta Pall was the first Dark Lord of the Sith, the very first one. Although being the first ruler of the First Order of Siths, he did not have a Sith name that he was known by, at least not one that I was able to find, instead being simply known as just Ajunta Pall or Master Pall to his followers. As indicated by his title, Pall was once a Jedi and Jedi Master, a member of the Jedi Order. He began to study alchemy during his time as a Jedi and would discover how to create and shape life. Despite this impressive discovery, the Jedi Order did not celebrate Pall, but instead feared him and his newfound power, deeming it as part of the dark side of the Force and condemning him. For this, he was kicked out of the Jedi Order, who then attempted to basically erase the knowledge of his discoveries in order to prevent anyone else from tampering with this newfound power. Frustrated at having been judged and rejected, Master Pall and his followers declared war on the Order, beginning the period known in history as the 100-Year Darkness. Pall comes from the expanded universe and I believe first appeared in the Dark Horse Star Wars comics. Number 3. Darth Bane. Darth Bane, while perhaps not as well known in terms of Sith and Sith Lords, is actually quite an important Sith in terms of their history. He is the creator of the Rule of Two. The Rule of Two maintains that at all times there can only be 2 Sith, a Master and their apprentice. Bane actually created the Rule of Two to protect the Sith after being the lone survivor of the Jedi-Sith War. Bane believed that the Sith's competitive nature and their focus on destroying one another had ultimately weakened them to the point that, you know, he was the last one. So he created the Rule of Two to help them better, somewhat, work together, thereby preserving them and their beliefs. The Jedi-Sith War happened about 1,000 years prior to the events of the Clone Wars and resulted in almost all of the Sith being wiped out by the Jedi Order, save for Bane. The Rule of Two might seem like a small thing considering that it doesn't seem to, you know, greatly increase the Sith's numbers, only going from 1 Sith at the top to like 2 of them, but it actually was successful in prolonging their survival thousands of years into the future. After the death of Darth Bane, who was killed supposedly by his own apprentice, the Jedi believed they had succeeded in wiping out all of the Sith, and a 1,000-year era of peace was ushered in. However, his apprentice survived, becoming the new Master. With the Jedi left unsuspecting, this actually allowed the Sith to plot in the shadows, spreading their influence throughout the galaxy and bolstering their power in secret. Darth Bane first appeared in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Number 2. Darth Zannah. Darth Zannah is relatively unknown even within the world of Star Wars itself, but still serves a super important role in the continuation and evolution of the Sith. Zannah was the apprentice of Darth Bane. She was trained to carry on the rules and teachings of Bane, including the self-preserving Rule of Two. We don't know much about her, or even really how she killed her master, but it's believed that she fought and killed Bane in a duel. Zannah has only been mentioned a few select times in Star Wars media, and is not only a mysterious figure to Star Wars fans, but also to characters within the world, as accurate historical records were, you know, not really kept in regards to her life and her story. She was actually first mentioned in the novel Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace by Terry Brooks, based off the film, of course, of the same name. Here, Darth Zannah was first wrongfully referred to using the pronoun him, and this would actually later be corrected in other media, where instead it would be established that Zannah used the pronouns of she, her. Now we know Zannah probably lady. Be cool to actually hear more about Darth Zannah. I would be interested. Number 1. Emperor Darth Vitiate. Darth Vitiate is quite the Sith. While to me Darth Vitiate is not as well known, if you go hard when it comes to Star Wars, there is a chance that this is a Sith Lord you might recognize thanks to his extensive history and his impressive feats. Truly, this is a Sith Lord that earns the unstoppable part of this title. Darth Vitiate is the son of the Sith Lord Drameth. Even growing up, he showed a great penchant for power and influence, conquering his own village and people by the age of 10 on planet Madrius. Hearing of this, Lord Drameth came to see for himself what chaos his son had wrought and was killed by his son. Unafraid and filled with brazen confidence, Tenebrae, as he was known at the time, would end up making his way to Dark Lord of the Sith, Marco Ragnos, where he would prove himself and be rewarded with the title of Sith Lord, becoming known as Lord Vitiate. He would also go on not just to become a Sith Lord, but also take for himself the title of Emperor. Vitiate would set out with his forces to once more find and reclaim the Sith homeworld of Dromund Kaz, ushering in the new dawn for his Sith Empire. Seeking complete immortality, Vitiate also sought to gain more power and in essence, basically become a god, becoming probably one of the most ambitious Sith Lords we have ever known in Sith history. Vitiate and his empire were first alluded to in the video game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic #2, The Sith Lords.